Good evening and welcome back to We're Not Really Here, full-time at Wembley, and it was the semi-final for the FA Cup. Arsenal 2, Manchester City 0, not the result that we wanted, and that does end the defence of our FA Cup crown. A really difficult 90 minutes, and in the second half, for me, it kind of played out much like the first half. Joining me to get into it is Michael Brown and Paul Dickov. Michael, we'll begin with you. It did feel a bit like a carbon copy of us dominating a lot of the ball, yet Arsenal with the one chance, the ball over the top, which we spoke about, resulted in another goal, and City found themselves 2-0 down.
We asked for a reaction at half-time. I felt like the players delivered that. They were on the front foot. They were pushing this Arsenal side right back, dominating like we've never seen. You know, it's usual City. But ultimately, again, it comes down to, as we mentioned, at what point do you leave players, the counter-attacking ability of Arsenal and Aubameyang, and just that one long ball was obviously the sucker punch that Manchester City didn't need to happen. They continued with fantastic play, but ultimately then Arsenal were on such a high, and they've defended yet again for their lives. It was a wonderful defensive display, but like we're seeing for Manchester City against Southampton, it was similar, wasn't it? That they stood in, they all defended well. David Luiz, who we've criticised so much, I think it was 10 clearances, 4 interceptions, wow. and that just tells you that the defensive display, but ultimately Manchester City couldn't create those opportunities.
No, and it's, look, we're all disappointed. I think you've got to, it's quite easy to pick the bones out of it, but you've got to give Arsenal huge credit for how they set up. You know, they defended fantastically well. They were under huge amounts of pressure for the majority of the game, especially in the second half. And, you know, at times they were defending 5-4-1 in their 18-yard box, you know, and it was so difficult to break down. Big moments in the game. You know, I do believe at 1-0 was a penalty for Raheem Sterling. He's been through, Mustafi, I think it was, you know, he's slid in, but he's caught him before he's caught the ball in the back of his knee. VAR must have seen something in it, because they looked at it for so long. I don't blame John Moss. I usually do blame John Moss because I'm not his biggest fan for the decision, but once it goes to VAR and they've slowed it down and they've seen the pictures that we've seen, they have to give the penalty. I can't understand for the life of me why they've not given that. And then literally, you know, defining moments in games, 5 minutes later, Arsenal break and it's 2-0. But for me, if we get the penalty and we score it, we go on and win the game, no problem at all. And it's a decision again by VAR that was wrong.
That's happened in a few games, but what I kind of will get into the big chance in the second half. But this, what we're talking about, even since the restart, it's a conversation that has definitely come about, and we haven't dived into it. But there is this thing of City dominating teams, kind of having absolute control over the game, carving out kind of half chances, maybe not full chances, yet still come 90 minutes, we find ourselves 1-2-0 down. What is that? Because it seems to happen now too many times for us to go, that was just one of those games. It's been one of those games about 5 or 6, 7 times this season. Where do you think we have to look to improve to stop that from happening? Because it literally seems to be our Achilles heel, and the only thing that you can kind of say City kind of don't get quite right.
I just think defensively, I think it's a little bit of concentration. You know, because we're attacking, we have that much possession of the ball. I mean, we were always taught, we were playing growing up, but when you're on the ball, the first thing you should think of is defence. You know, especially as your defenders. And you know, I think young Eric was inexperienced because we've got that much possession. He's watching what's in front of him without realising that Aubameyang's always ready to go in there. So concentration levels, because we dominate every single game that we're in defensively. And then when we get the chances, maybe it sounds ridiculous to say because the amount of goals we score is just being a bit more clinical.
There was an interview where Sterling said just that, going, actually, we do create the chances, we just sometimes don't always take them. And going back to that goal, Michael, for you were saying, because Eric was very much watching in front of him, and Aubameyang was in his line of view, it wasn't behind him, and he just forgot about him, and that was as simple as that.
If you watch the clip from the right-hand side, Kyle Walker had gone tight, and then it looked like the ball was released, and Eric had came across, And he could see Aubameyang there. So for me, I'm thinking, I can just deal with Aubameyang. If that ball's going to go over my head, I can block him. I can get my arm between me and him so it's not a race. I need to be that side, or at least I can put my hand on him so he can't do that. But if you see, just before it happens, the ball goes over the top, he checks to his left-hand side to see what's around him, is there any other danger to the side. And once he's done that, the ball's gone. He's already too late. So he has to think, I'm okay, I'm doing my job. I'm just going to look after Aubameyang on my right side. I've got Laporte, I've got Mendy. They'll have to do their job. And ultimately, that's with experience. And just get your hand on him, make sure you can't go the other way. And once he's gone, you're not going to be able to recover with Aubameyang.
I think he's just, as soon as the ball gets laid back for the up, back and through for Aubameyang to go, as soon as that goes back, I think Eric's just got to cover space side.
Yeah.
And if anything, be a deterrent for the ball going in there in the first place. And then when the ball does go in there, at least you know you've got half a yard on Aubameyang, whereas he's up level, and as Michael says there, he's watching what's happening in front of him without really worrying what's happening behind him. But we don't want to be too overcritical of him, because he's been fantastic since he came in. And look, we're all a bit disappointed, but I always try and take positives out of it. Now we can concentrate on the biggie at Real Madrid going forward.
Well, that is what's left to play for now. City, of course, we've secured second place in the Premier League. Unfortunately, the FA Cup is out of our hands. Champions League still to play for. What's your approach though now, Jensen? And Michael, I'll begin with you, because we've got Watford and Norwich rest for the rest of the season. Watford is next Tuesday, then Norwich, and then it's Champions League. Do you now rest your kind of best 11 to 13, 14 players, or do you say no, we keep going in the Premier League and build up momentum again?
I think it's about the momentum, it's about minutes, but I think they'll be getting some patterns in place for Real Madrid. Wherever they are, you don't always see them with Pep Guardiola. He will be working on them daily, and we might see little snippets, 2s and 3s. You mentioned earlier, didn't you, that they play within groups, so we might see that start to develop on the games leading up. It'll now give everybody the opportunity and rest. So I think it's important that rests in place. I think it was going to be a little bit unfair if Manchester City got to an FA Cup final, Real Madrid having more rest. Now that there's still more rest there, but it's ultimately nowhere near that you can complain about. So it's just move on from it, accept the amount of possession, the amount of good football that City did. And as Paul said, should have been a penalty, would have changed the whole outlook of the game. So you can't be just too disappointed. Pep Guardiola will say, wonderful performance second half, we controlled it, it was great little link play, but defensively we've just got to stop leaking these goals, unfortunately.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, two men who've been at Wembley for us throughout the show has been Kyle Walker with Sean Wright-Phillips. Here's what they had to say at full time.